Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have the SP, SJ, NT, and NF types. And Carol from this panel created a really nice PowerPoint illustrating what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm just going to put it on the screen. And so today we'll be talking about the temperaments in Keirsey's language and the essential motivators in Linda Beren's language. Linda Berens calls the SPs improvisers, and Keirsey calls the SPs artisans. And their core psychological need is to be free to act in the moment to make an impact. For the SJs, Linda Beren calls them the stabilizers, and Keirsey calls them the guardians. And so their core psychological need is to stabilize the system, belong, and to be responsible. And then there are the NTs, which are the theorists from Linda Berens and the rationales from Keirsey. And their core desire is to be competent, to be an expert. And then there are the NFs, where in Beren's system, they're catalysts. And from Keirsey, they're idealists. Their core psychological need is to be authentic, to make a difference. And what this translates to essentially is what they want in a life partner. So this is something that's introduced in Keirsey's book, Please Understand Me Too. He talks about how the SPs, they want a life partner who's a playmate. The SJs want a partner who is a helpmate. And the NTs want a partner that's a mindmate. And the NFs want a life partner who is a soulmate. And so I'm hoping in this panel to illustrate the similarities and differences in what all of these types look for in an ideal mate, and to just gain some more insights on this, to go deeper into this concept with you all. And so we have quite a variety of the flavors of the temperaments or the essential motivators here. For instance, we have an ENTP to give more of the NTP perspective, and we have an INTJ to give more of the NTJ perspective. And so we have that for each of the temperaments. So it'll be a pretty interesting deep dive into this Keirseyan and Beren school of thought. And so, Chris, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Hey everyone, I'm Chris. I run the YouTube channel AsuraPsych. I am a psychology graduate student, a certified MBTI practitioner, and I work as a life coach and a researcher.
I've had Chris on plenty of time, and yeah, his insights continue to boombazzle me. And Louisa?
Hi, my name's Louisa. I was a client of Joyce's, and she's very kindly invited me on the panel today. I'm an undergraduate student in English literature, and yeah, that's me.
Thanks for attending. And Emrys?
Hello, you can call me Emrys. I love teaching metaphysics, esoterica, and mysticism, and D&D, and staying up till 3 a.m. having really complicated conversations about the universe that turn into let's just love each other.
That's really wholesome. The NFs like to lead everything back to love. All right, and Carol?
I'm Carol Emrys. I would love those conversations too, but not till 3 a.m. But that sounds like a great way to spend time just earlier. I'm a certified Myers-Briggs practitioner. I've been an OD consultant for about 20 years, first as an internal, about past 13 years as an external. I'm on the board of APTI, and I met Joyce through a Linda Beren's class, and I'm honored to be here and have so much fun and learn so much when I come. So thank you, Joyce.
Carol has a really bright light of energy. She's like very healing to be around. You will feel filled with love and joy and all good things around her. And Roger?
Hey everyone, I'm Roger. I met Joyce through just some ISFJ groups that are in MBTI groups on Facebook, and I'm an admin for a few of them, so I was really excited to be here.
Yeah, Roger is the admin for the ISFJ Haven group on Facebook, and I'll have that link below. Cool stuff. It's nice to have you on. And Samuel?
Hi everyone, I'm Samuel, the ISTJ. I'm a type 1 with an I. That's it.
Solid. ISTJs oftentimes type out as Enneagram 1, so fun facts. And Daniel?
Hello everybody, I'm Daniel Storm. I don't have much connection to personality type. My wife is more in that field, Susan Storm, who runs Psychology Junkie. So yeah, I've kind of learned it by osmosis from being around her. So met Joyce through my wife as well, and yeah, excited to be here and see what we can offer to the group.
It's nice to have you here by association. And dear Kristin?
Hey guys, nice to meet you. My name's Kristin. I'm so excited to be on this panel. I love coming on Joyce's panels. So yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm just a gal from Australia who has an interest in psychology and personality theory. And I run a YouTube channel called Dear Kristin, where I make comedy sketches based on the types. So yeah, excited to learn a bit more today with you guys.
Fun stuff, fun stuff. And so Kristin and Chris have amazing YouTube channels that I'll link below. You should definitely check them out. And Carol is part of the APTI, and I'll have that link below too if you want to get more involved into the psychological type roots of personality. All right. And so life partners in terms of Keyresian language. How do you relate to the terms playmate, helpmate, soulmate, and mindmate? Carol, I was wondering if you wanted to go first.
Well, of course you were. And I was holding back because I'm the extrovert who does go first. So I've been invited, so I will. I'm just gonna put it out there. I read Keirsey first more years ago than I want to say out loud right now on YouTube. And it made so much sense to me. Keirsey's book, Please Understand Me Too, is what got me into studying type and helped me gave me the foundation for creating a career from it. that and all the teaching I got from APTI. And reading the chapter about Idealist, I struggle between, the two teachers. Reading the chapter, I am such an idealist. It is freaking embarrassing. I mean, he just nailed me. And he says this thing about catalysts expect just this incredible soulmate to come into their life and just emerge and be one. And he said, and nobody else understands what that is but catalyst. And it just befuddles everyone else. That's not what they expect. And God, that is so embarrassingly true. It just is so true. And I'm so grateful to Keirsey because I felt so affirmed. Well, after I'm embarrassed for what, idealist I am, I was so affirmed by his describing temperament. And it made, I felt like as a catalyst in a family full of stabilizers and improvisers, I just felt like odd man out, and I didn't know why. I knew I was different, but I didn't know how, and I kept trying to fit in. And I read Keirsey, and I thought, oh my God, I'm a known thing in the universe. I'm not this strange, odd person. I'm an odd person that this guy named David Keirsey knows what I am. So there are more people like me, and I'm not this strange outlier. It was incredibly affirming, and it started my journey that became a career. So I'm very grateful to Keirsey, embarrassed and grateful.
Yeah, Keirsey's concept of the soulmate and how NFs just naturally understand that. It's like their sixth sense or something. They're born with the inkling or just the instinct for understanding that concept and just believing in it in this huge way that other people may not always understand. And that's actually something that really resonated with me when I got into type, was reading Keirsey's description of the NFs. Like, NFs have this desire for emotional nakedness in the terms of kind of wanting to be able to find someone whose soul can be naked with your soul. And you just kind of get it. You know it when you find it. You don't know necessarily. It would take forever to explain it. And it's like an intuitive knowing of it. And it's like knowing what the ideal relationship looks like in your mind. And you just have always understood the composites that make up the ideal relationship or the ideal bond, or how you can like really meld soul heart concept with another person. Carol will say things like there are friends of the road and friends of the heart, and that's something, if you want to go into, you could totally go into. And so I find things like that, I feel like catalysts are really drawn to trying to depict the most ideal kind of like state of relationships or state of the world. And they're drawn to the growth and potential of what a relationship could be. And so, yeah.
Can I ask, as NFs, how often is it that you actually encounter that kind of soulmate with whom you have that connection, who like matches that sort of ideal?
First of all, Kristin, it's like this. Oh gosh, I don't mean to be ironic here. It's like an ideal, and it's like our heart is always searching for that. And it's a little different from having a love of, well, I guess the ultimate expression is, what the person you say is the love of your life, and there's just this heart-to-heart connection. And no, we don't find it all the time, but I will tell you, I have found it in several what I call heart-to-heart friends. Joyce brought up that phrase. A friend taught me once, another catalyst friend, fellow ENFP taught me years ago. I was hurt because a friendship had ended. Somebody just ended a friendship. No one a romantic partnership. It was a friendship. And she said somebody had like left the company and not maintained a friendship with me. And she said, Carol, there are friends of the road and friends of the heart. And it's okay for, there are people who are just your friends during a certain period of your life. And that's okay. And you don't have to mourn that. That is what it is. But there are also people who are friends of the heart who will be with you until what my college roommate and I have been friends since we were 18 years old, and best friends. And she's INFJ. So we're like this perfect catalyst pairing. And our expression for it is we're together for each other till the wheels fall off. And I will say, as a catalyst, we may not always find that in a love match. And that's okay, because I was madly in love with an INTP theorist in my 20s. I mean, madly in love. I adored him, okay? So it doesn't have to be a soulmate for you to adore them. But I will say, in friendships, Kristin, I have found it repeatedly. I'm blessed to have about 4, maybe 5 people I can just out of the blue call up and have what Emrys talks about, that conversation with, and I feel very blessed by that. But no, it doesn't occur in large numbers. And by the way, Keirsey is recording what each temperament really wants in a partner, but it's really what they're willing to be in a partner. They don't really tend to usually partner with what it is they're saying they want or what they offer. So, Emrys.
So again, I would make a distinction between people who fulfill that same role and that you relate to with a relationship of friendship without a romantic or sexual component, for example, and then like a person who you relate to as that, but also as a desired life partner, which I suppose could also be a romantic or asexual, depending on how you relate to those aspects of human existence. But I would say the relevant portion of the answer is that the frequency with which I've met people like that has increased drastically the more that I have gotten in touch with and clarity about what I truly desire, and the more I've been willing to pursue those desires and then sort of analyze the results of that experience and kind of distill love and life lessons from it. And I would illustrate that by saying, like, I had maybe one friend who filled that kind of role in like middle school and high school, and then I had maybe 3 when I was in university, and I've found like an additional 5 just within the past 2 years. So it's been an exponential rate of increase as I've worked on transforming myself, essentially. And I like to say that reality likes to play. So the more you engage with it on those terms and seek those things, it's like it brings you closer and closer, or more and more similar experiences to that ideal that you're seeking. And so any one of those, you could either approach that as like taking that friendship and attempting to move it into a life partnership thing, or you could have an experience where you're sensing intuitively that this is not quite what you want in a life partner, and you just keep doing the internal work and then watching for how reality responds playfully.
Yeah. I think depending on the person, the NF can take it in different ways. So there are some NFs who are very in tune with their desire for a soulmate, and what that can do is they won't want to settle. And so you'll find people who are very picky about who they're going to romantically tie themselves down to, because they might have a soulmate in terms of friendship, but they may not consider anyone, like someone may not be available, or someone may not reach the caliber of what they want in a soulmate yet. And so you can have NFs who just kind of stay out of serious, committed, lifelong relationships because they know what the soulmate vibe is, and they know that right now they can't find it yet. And it's an abstract concept because you can't necessarily pin it down into words. You just kind of, you know when it's there and you know when it's not. And so you're looking for that clicking. That person Emrys talked about that you can talk to at 3 a.m. about these abstract, esoteric topics about how the world could be or how people could grow, or other things too, depending on what the NF likes. But there are also NFs who aren't that big into finding a soulmate too. So I'm not saying they all look for that soulmate, but there are, when an NF has that soulmate drive, you know you have that drive and you know that you can't forget it. It's like seeing the color purple. You can't unsee the color purple too, and you know that your heart always longs for it.
That intuitive feeling, like I think it shows up differently for each person, but I think often NFs begin to get a sense of what kind of intuitive knowing that feels like. And the best way I can describe this is that for me, it's similar to, it's kind of like time slows down, the heart opens to like reality itself, and there's like no more desire to be anywhere else at that moment. There's just this direct experience and contemplation of beauty. And that's going to look a little different for everybody, but it's all those aspects of human existence that we find really difficult to put into language or to quantify. And it's things that you can get to know as the thing you desire and then look for, and a list of characteristics that you're looking for, unless that list is aimed at you learning to articulate to yourself what that moment of connection with reality feels like.
Well, for the helpmate, I'll say that when I think about relationships, I really not think about it as something to be reached, but a story to be built and told. So since that is a process that takes a lot of time and that takes a lot of effort, when I think about a relationship, it makes sense to think of the other person as someone who will help you to build that story. So that makes sense.
I think Carol brought up a good point when she talked about the idea that it's not maybe always what you're looking for, but also maybe what you represent in the relationship. For example, I have a lot of friends who come to me because I am the mind mate in the relationship, but that's not something that I particularly look for in a romantic relationship, for example. Now in friendships, yes, I often like to have someone who can like kind of maybe challenge me a little intellectually, but if I had that all the time, every day in my home life, I would get bored of it. Or I like to have, my wife, I believe, is an ENFJ, and I like to have someone who's a little softer and supportive at home, who I say, I want to do this. This is my goal. And she goes, yes, fantastic. We're doing that. So to me, I think that's why I seek maybe more like the NF relationships, or even SF sometimes, because they tend to be a little bit more on that side.
Yeah, I find that a lot of NTs tend to date NFs. There's a strong correlation there. Not anyone can date anyone. I'm not saying like for sure, but I do notice like NT types gravitating towards dating the NFs. But yeah, Carol, you.
Yeah. Oh, Chris, thank you so much for that. If I can add another example of what Chris just said, my mother had ISTJ preferences really clear, and my stepfather, INTJ, just classic INTJ engineer type. And my mother, there's nothing wrong with mother's intelligence. She just didn't do, the conceptual, thought universal stuff he did. But Chris, it's really obvious that's not what he was looking for from her. She was ISTJ. She was his foundation. She maintained the family connections. He married into her huge extended family, and they all adored this man. And this man, I hope I don't cry when I say this, this man loved and adored my mother for 30 years till he died of cancer. And I got to witness this beautiful INTJ man loving and adoring this ISTJ woman. And guys, my mother has been described by a friend from my childhood as a real piece of work at times. My mother is a kick butt in tank name steel magnolia. And if you're Kristin, you may not know what that is in the South. I can explain that if you want, but it's intense woman to be dealt with. And he was calm in the face of it, and he never ever put her down. She would be very black and white in her thinking, and he would say, well, you know, Coy, one way of looking at that could be blah, blah, blah. And he said it calmly. He never talked down to her. He never made her wrong. And she said, anyway, the point is here, Chris, he was beautifully happy with this woman who did the stabilizer thing, which is what he needed, was a groundedness. But she said, you know, Carol, after being married to Tom Austin for a few years, not only did I get it, the world was not all black and white, that there was some gray. In fact, there was a lot of gray. And she said, he taught me that. And she said, I was a much happier person before he taught me that. But I realized that that was one of the gifts, not only loving and adoring her, but that was one of the gifts he brought to the table by just calmly sharing in a not domineering way. He helped open up her black and white thinking to there's some gray. So yeah, it absolutely can be beautiful and working without it being the classic Keirsey pairing. So thank you, Chris, for that thought.
That is a really, really good concept, Chris, that the role you play in the Keirsian thought is actually like, it's what you represent. So any type can be with any type. And so anyone else want to share their experience?
I think you need to pick on people, Joyce.
All right, Kristin. I choose you.
Of course, yes. Okay, playmate. Well, I feel like, yeah, I just, like, I don't really seek out, I guess, yeah, it's hard to say because I have a lot of friendships with, like, different temperaments. And I've definitely dated quite a few different types as well. So I don't think I don't think I necessarily seek a playmate. It's just more like, if someone can give me the space to be that kind of like performer, silly, just have fun, just kind of be an idiot, just do what I feel like doing, I guess, in the moment within reason, of course, and bring that joy to like the room or whatever. If I'm given space to do that, then I will feel probably more fulfilled in a relationship, generally speaking. But weirdly, like I can kind of relate to a lot of what you guys were saying about that whole soulmate thing, in the sense that maybe it's my FI, I don't know, but like I definitely crave some kind of like, I mean, I guess as humans we do crave a connection that's abstract in a sense, but I definitely don't relate to the whole idea of the ideal someone that you're always kind of chasing. But I recognize when I recognize when I do have that abstract, that like soul connection with someone in the moment, and I appreciate it. And I can also stay up till 3 a.m. chatting with people about things for sure. But this ideal, I think it's one of the things I've struggled to understand a lot about NFs, and a huge difference between ESFP and ENFP, as I've noticed, is just all of this ideal stuff that like I can in some sense relate to, but then I'm also like, but if I don't have experience with something, I can't just materialize this concept or this idea of this thing that may or may not exist, that I may find and may not find. So but I do, like, I crave that connection as well. Just whoever's gonna just kind of not take things too seriously, and just kind of let me be me. Let me go play on the playground at 3 a.m. if that's what I want to do, and bring a bottle of wine if that's where it's going to go. I'm hoping Daniel relates to some of this.
So you described having difficulty perceiving like a thing that you haven't had direct experience of. Are you able to take like profound experiences from other aspects of life and then sort of extrapolate that to the kind of profound experience you might have with like a person or with maybe you could do the same thing with like a job or something, but like a thing that you haven't had direct experience of, but that you have had like a profound experience in a different area of life, can you transfer it over to the other area? Like when you've had ecstatic experiences of beauty or something, and then you look for like that kind of thing in a person.
Oh yeah, I mean, as I've grown older and I've like suffered more and I've made more mistakes and I've just grown as a person, I have become just better at recognizing truth, goodness, and beauty as concepts. Like before, it was just sort of, what's this? What's the immediate thing that's happening in front of me? Let me play with it, even if it's, you know, not going to have good consequences in the future. Now I'm much better at, not doing that, because I can recognize quicker when something is good and when things aren't good, and whether things are good for me and my soul and whether they're not. I think that just comes from growing as a person. So I think yes, though your question was kind of abstract. I kind of would need like an example. It
would be like, what's the difference between that and the ideal that you feel like you can't quite see or like?
Yeah. Yes. I hear what you're trying to ask. Yeah. So say for instance, like I meet someone, me trying to bring it into a tangible experience somehow. Okay. So say I meet someone who I recognize there is that beauty and that soul connection. I'll kind of appreciate it for what it is in the moment. It's not like, and I'll be surprised and I'll enjoy it and I'll have that moment that we share. But before that moment happened, I would never have been able to perceive what that moment would look like until it's actually happened. And then I guess I know, like through many relationships I've had, I now know how I desire to be understood and what I need to feel understood and what I need to do to make others feel understood, and what it means to be like loving and those kinds of things. So I know how to do that when I meet new people. But this idea of like the ideal person, like I still really struggle with questions such as like, what do you look for in a partner, for instance? I'm just like a good person, loyalty, honesty. And I've surprised myself with the soul connection that I felt. I felt soul connections with people of all different types. And it surprises me every time. And I like that it surprises me. It's not anticipated. It's not like every single person I meet is like a blank canvas that they have the opportunity to surprise me, and it's great. And I just, I like, there's so many things about what you guys were talking about as NFs that I can relate to, but just without the abstract ideal, you know, it's so hard to explain. Yeah.
That made sense. Thank you for taking the time to explain it.
No worries.
So probably I'm mistaken about this because it's very far from my experience of reality. But the way that I understand is that for NFs, it's not that they start a relationship and they realize that it ended up being what they imagined to be, but that they have an image of what a relationship could be, that they see the potential when they meet the other person to give life to that image. So probably for an SF, it's not to you first try to see what there is in the relationship, and then you find out what you can consider about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ideal is what both of us are pursuing together. Like not as something that we've achieved, but as something that like we're both attempting to experience by dancing together through life, basically.
Yeah, I think a key difference maybe there's that idea of we are going somewhere, things are going to get better, we are working towards something greater. Whereas for like me as an SF, it's more like this moment is all there is. There's no moment past this moment. So everything we can experience together needs to be this moment, because we don't know if we have enough. There's no, like, there's no forward moment. It's just now. It's just SE, right? So like, yeah, that's why I guess as an ESFP, I would be very like one of the most, I wear my heart on my sleeve. When I meet someone, I'm quite open about my life experience, my journey, my emotions. I just like all in pretty much, which is, you know, to my detriment in my younger years. But yeah, like there's no future. Like there is in like a oh, you know, I'm gonna be alive hopefully in a few years, so there is that future in that sense. But what I feel is just this moment, and what I experience is just this moment. So that would be a clear difference there. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really interesting because I don't feel like it always gets experienced as a goal-driven process, but sometimes it's like there is this abstract conception of love or beauty or something that's underlying things, and then sometimes that like pops up into the present moment in various different ways, and you feel like you're connected with whatever that thing is. And it's like pursuing it, like creating environments and moments where you can connect more deeply to that thing, even if you're not trying to like achieve a particular goal.
Yeah, Emrys stated it perfectly. I agree with the points that Kristin and Samuel said. It does bring to air this, that I find a lot of ISFPs and ESFPs will relate to NF temperament stuff because of their introverted feeling, their FI. Because there's a component of idealism and romanticism to introverted feeling in general. So it's going to relate to the NF stuff. But I think one of the differences is the level of abstraction that the NFs actually take it. Like if you actually spend time with NFs and hear them all having conversation with each other, you will notice like that it's all not tethered to reality in any way. So it's actually, you're talking about these abstract concepts, and they're just floating abstract concepts without a clear like line bringing it down to reality always. And I think that might be the slight difference, because like what Emrys was describing, like this, there's this abstract fabric that like underties the whole world. It's almost like NFs have this like, people who are just spiritual will relate to this, but it's like almost like NFs are born with an innate sense of spirituality, and they just feel the abstract beauty of everything, and they just don't know how to describe the spirituality that was always there. And it's so strong.
In literature, there is a period called Romanticism, and then following from that is the Gothic. And Romanticism is very much about that. It's about going out into nature, experiencing the sublime, feeling this sense of consciousness that is something other, and yeah, kind of awe-inspiring. And which, yeah, I was just thinking about what Joyce was saying there. The other thing was, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, because for a while there, you guys may as well have been speaking Urdu. I was like, what's going on? Because I don't relate to it. But I think the way I'm understanding this is like, is it almost like you have threads, maybe internal threads, and they're very, very specific, and they can be pulled. And then when they're pulled, it's I don't know. There's a sense of connection with someone when these threads are pulled. I'm trying to conceptualize this.
With the NFs, there's very much, like you mentioned, romanticism, and that's a good point. But there's also a lot of times I see like a melodramaticism as well. I find where they see a lot of like potential, but also lost potential when it comes to relationships, friendships, family members. I like to pick on the NFJs in my Discord a lot because they can't go a day without saying the word profound when they're talking about friends. And it's just like, because that's how they literally feel about these things. Like these are big, important experiences to them. So I find that these types tend to talk about their relationships in these very, I don't want to say over exaggerated because that implies that they're not feeling that, but it's a very elevated style of communication.
Yeah, that's accurate. I think that NFs tend to experience those intense subjective perceptions of things as profound or deep, like a lot more frequently. And it's interesting to see like discussions among, well, all the types, but especially NFs, like about whether it's frequency or like subjective intensity that defines like a profound experience. Like are profound experiences defined by like, you know, your wedding day or like a few days in your life, or is it like just the intensity of the experience? But for the threads thing, that is accurate. See if I can put into words. It's accurate to the extent that NFs have a connection with an underlying weave that's made of many threads, and they tend to have like a unique pattern of those threads that they subjectively experience as intense on a frequent basis. And when someone is able to kind of, threads is a hard metaphor because there has to be some kind of connection to those threads. It's not just like the pulling on it, because people can like, it's like being able to meet someone who can understand the entire tapestry, because when we're experiencing things that are abstract, the closest thing I can think to describe it is archetypes. It's like to NFs, archetypes and symbols are almost like tangible or I want to say physically real, but it's like they're things that when we interact with them either through stories or just mentally or through contemplation, like we experience them with the same level of emotional intensity that you might experience with like another person. Like I can sit there and have conversations in my mind with an archetype. Now that's like usually a very weird experience, because it's like portions of yourself that you're not used to interacting with that feel like they're responding of their own will. But it's basically like experiencing those abstract portions of human experience so intensely that it's like they're a real person. And then each NF is going to have like a unique tapestry of archetypes. And the thing that I think dictates the level of connection is how well can someone like perceive and understand and like manipulate or walk through your unique tapestry with you.
That is so well put, Emrys. Bravo. With the NFs, abstract concepts feel more real than reality itself. And so if you're able to bond with that side of us that can see that abstract concept, we feel more intimate with you. In regards to Louisa and when she was talking about the threads, it's like NFs, they're used to losing people in speech. So when you speak really abstractly, people tend to like, they comprehend threads, but they don't comprehend the carpet. And so oftentimes it's hard to have intimacy when you're trying to communicate this most real reality to you, and then people lose you upon the way. They like get pieces of the tapestry, but it's like the pink and blue and red, but they're missing the overall message of the tapestry. And so there's a missing piece of intimacy in like you're walking this conceptual bridge and you can't find someone to walk that bridge with. And so sometimes like people will say things like, what do you mean by that? Or they care, but they're just nodding. And so it shows like they care about you, but they don't like fully invest into like the thing that you're talking about, versus like you actually, everyone deals with this, right? So general soulmate stuff that NFs talk about, everyone can kind of relate to in a certain kind of way, because it's just talking about, you know, what an ideal partner would look like. And then NFs just put that radio frequency and then put it on full drive, because they intrinsically have been entertaining or thinking about what that would mean or how that would look like. So it's like everyone has that soulmate seeking part of them, but NFs just kind of have it in their periphery. Like it just exists because the concept of it is so real. Like life itself can kind of feel like a lover sometimes, or life itself can feel like you're participating in a dance with your soulmate at all times. Like everyone or everything or people can embody that concept of a soulmate, but they typically embody like small slivers of it, or for some people even larger bits of it. And so things that represent that idea of beauty or concepts of beauty in your head can trigger the overwhelm of beauty that you would see seeing a soulmate to varying degrees, depending on how much it can represent a certain thing. Anyway, I don't know if that made sense.
It makes sense as to why NFs have this stereotype of feeling like misunderstood, because I feel like you guys have this tapestry and that's your reality, which is what I'm getting. I'm latching onto the tapestry metaphor here. It's good. So like for me, I can be like, okay, in the physical world, it's like, here's a couch. The couch is blue. We can all agree that the couch is blue, right? Now, you guys have your reality, like the couch is my reality. Now you guys have this reality of this tapestry, but your tapestry is in the abstract. So it's going to look different from the next NF's tapestry. They're going to be different categories. They're all going to look different. So I guess that explains why you kind of are just searching for someone to understand your tapestry. But like at what point do you have to, I imagine it would be a struggle to be like, how much am I, like, to what extent do you need to be understood fully in your tapestry? Or is it more to do with like having that person allow you to explore your tapestry in front of them, or just show you the tapestry? Or like, because I imagine it would get to this point of like constantly being like, oh, but I might find someone who understands me better, or someone who understands me even better, or, you know, I don't know.
I have, before someone answers, I have a story actually. I had a partner who was an NF type, and I was just thinking about this the other day, and this reminded me of it. So he was a painter, and that was his whole life, was painting, was artwork, blah blah blah. And I can't remember what we were doing, how this came up, but he ended up finding out that he was colorblind. And I just was like, okay, cool, you're colorblind, you know, it happens. And he was devastated, absolutely devastated. And I was like, I don't understand, why is it such a big deal? It's like, everything that I've put out in my artwork now is no longer what it is. I'm like, oh, it's still going to be generally the same thing. He's like, it's not. It's not. It's this, I've tried to put forward this profound thing and choosing the colors perfectly, and now no one will be able to understand what it meant to me. And I had no idea what he was meaning. But now that we're talking about this, I think that this might be relevant.
That's a great story. And when you said he was colorblind, I just sank. I mean, I just had an intuitive reaction to it. And what I wanted to respond to was I love your metaphor of the threads and the tapestry, and we're creating the tapestry as we go through our lives, and it gets richer and deeper, and people come in, and I experience that as a metaphor for life. I respond to that. The way I feel touched by people is not with the thread metaphor, it's vibrational. It's like, I'm saying, it's like there's a resonance in the chest capacity. There are people at work I've done very little personal sharing with, but when an INTJ colleague I go into her office to ask something, and she wasn't warm and fuzzy, right? I mean, she was nice to me. She liked me. We had good dialogue, but it's not like there was any outpouring, but she had goodwill. It's like my chest can feel goodwill in the other person. It's like I'm a vibrational thing. I've got sensors out here picking up things like mad. It's exhausting sometimes being a catalyst, because your sensors, there's no freaking off button for these doggone sensors. Emrys, if you ever find the off button, Joyce, would you please tell me? Because I've never found it. And you have to just, pull back sometimes. But that person, we never had any real emotional stuff, but I had left that job and in a layoff, and I ran into her a couple of years later at an event, a professional event, and she saw me walk in the room. She didn't say a word. She got up, she crossed the room, and she threw her arms around me and hugged me to her chest with all her might. And this was a woman with INTJ preferences. So what that says to me is I was right. There was a sense of goodwill and a connection there, and she didn't have to be effusive for me to get it. So thank you, Louisa, for giving me a reason to bring back that memory. That was lovely.
That was really beautiful. Yeah, so it is more like vibrations. So yeah, Carol put it more accurately. So it's not like this logical like cut thing that I kind of might have made it sound like. It's this like, so you have this conception of beauty, and it's in this abstract form. It's not like you're consciously always thinking about it, but you just understand it. It's like an innate understanding of beauty, and when you see it. So, and you can spot it in people or things or in concepts or in life. But it's just this innate understanding. I don't know how else to understand it. And it feels like vibrations. Like it shows itself in the form of vibrations.
Well, in Romanticism and the Gothic, it's not just about beauty. It's also about sublime, which is kind of like an awe or terror sometimes. And it's also loss, so melancholy. So it's within this like landscape or that you're experiencing, or the speaker of the poem let's just say, who's the, Percy Shelley. He's to me, he's the most FI of all of them. And then the others are probably enough. Anyway, it's beauty encompasses both beauty itself as a whole, loss, and it's profound. It's a profound loss, but it's beautiful. It's not. There's necessarily a negative thing. Maybe in a it's just lost, something that's been rotted out or whatever. Then this sublime sort of awe and a feeling of resonance. That's how I would put it. They really put across vibrations, resonance. So and I think that's what I was thinking when I was talking about threads. It's more than just like you're ongoing creating a tapestry, but it's also threads of resonance as they come up as you're experiencing it through life that feels very real. And I know I'm talking blah, blah, blah now, sorry. But I was just thinking about romanticism and all the stuff that you were talking about. And to me, so they used to say that romanticism is not really a genre or something belonging to an era. It's something that is ongoing and profound in everything. So I remember struggling with that when I was learning it, but as we're talking about it all, it's coming a little bit more to life in a day-to-day level.
Yeah, that's a wonderful connection, Louisa. That concept that she brought up is very either NF or FI. It applies to both in different ways. And so, Samuel?
I believe that the main issue about the question of Kristin is that how it makes sense that a relationship is not necessarily, don't take what actually happens in the relationship as something to decide if it's good or not, probably. Because I believe that, for example, when you receive a gift, and your main concern is not what the gift is, but the fact that shows caring to you. So it's the implication. So they will have images that they want a lot of implications that requires whatever action. Those actions needs to be consistent with the implications. So what I give to you is not relevant. The fact that I gave something to you. So everything is related to the implication that they have, and that's how they manage to see the relationship. Not what happens, but the implications of what happens, what they mean to you. Because there are a lot of descriptions of how it feels, how it goes, but what's hard to understand is how that something is how something that not necessarily is happening has meaningless, because there are implications. That's why they matter.
Yeah, the implications and everything you're talking about, Samuel. You were referencing NFs, right? Just to make sure.
Yeah, because
Okay, cool.
There are a lot of images. They don't necessarily, they are not what happens in a relationship. They represent what happens in a relationship. So I was trying to say that the present is what actually happening and what we are paying attention to. Like I received a gift or you received a gift. You will analyze like how good it is, but for them, it's not, the gift does not matter. It's the implication that they care about you. That goes to higher levels of interpretation and how other things are mixed and everything else.
Yeah, 100% agree, Samuel. Really well put. Emrys?
So connecting actually what Samuel just said and the question that Kristin had earlier about like at what point do you have to be like, well, how do you know there's not somebody else that would understand you better? So for one, the implications can get extremely complex. So like it's not just like that you care about them, but that it's this whole world of implications. And then in response to Kristin's question, I think it's going to vary on the NF because some seem to be satisfied with being able to just articulate their internal world or their perception of the like archetypal world. And then others desire to like play in that world with friends or partners. So like I'm in that latter category where for me, I feel very grateful and happy about friends who will just like listen to it, but it doesn't satisfy the desire to interact with somebody who speaks the same language, essentially, where it's like they're able to, even if it's not their native language, who's able to like enter that world with me and then actually impact and alter my perceptions of it based on their responses to the like perceptions of that world that I'm presenting. Like if I'm describing that world in a certain way and they describe it in a different way, that changes my perception of it. So it's just like with physical art or something. And then the other component of it brings it into embodiment or expression, where there's a desire to like engage with activity that puts not only like puts an archetype into action or puts a portion of the soul into action, but like alters that world as well. So I'm trying to think of a good example. Spiritual practice and emotional conversations might be a good one, where one person might be embodying a particular portion of that abstract world and doing it intentionally, and then that resulting in so it's like you're interacting with an archetype that now has a body, or interacting with a portion of that tapestry that's now embodied. And it's like that person is taking on that role for the time being, and then they take on that role in a way that's unique to them, and it changes your perception of that world. So it's like, it's not just the listening to the archetype that's the only avenue. There's also the like speaking the language of that internal world, and there's the acting out of that internal world in embodiment.
I love that. Yeah, that's you've clearly thought a lot about this. Yeah, that's well explained. The thing about implications, yeah, I'm glad you put that into words, Samuel, because I feel and I wonder if Daniel maybe this can be Daniel's debut into the conversation, an hour. If you agree with me here, Daniel. But like, one of the most frustrating things for me as like an SP is when, and I have noticed that like NFs will do this, not all NFs for sure, but like, yeah, putting implications onto your actions when like that are just flat out wrong. But like after discussing this a bit, I'm like really coming to understand this idea of what it means to have that abstract as like the reality. And I totally understand why that's something that NFs would tend to do. But what are your thoughts on all this, Daniel?
Well, I have an hour-long conversation to go back and give. No, I'm just kidding. No. So I agree with you on a lot of points there, Kristin. When Emrys was talking about how he has conversations with parts of himself that were less conscious than other things, I'm sitting there going, I barely have one part of myself to have a conversation with, right? Like I am just me. There is no other part. So and Emrys, I felt bad because as you were saying it, like there's this really like deep, intense, like you were really putting yourself out there and explaining it. And I was laughing, not at you, but just at how different it really is. But that's awesome. That's awesome. Like to be able to do that must be really amazing. For myself, falling under the kind of playmate, like it's been brought up, I don't necessarily look for that in someone else. As Kristin said, I definitely need to be free to be myself. I am a goofball. And I will literally I will say something in the strangest voice going through the house in a response to something. And I'll be like, I have no idea why I felt the need to say this or say it in that way, but it's just like this, it just happens. And I have to be able to do that to be comfortable in my family and in my relationship. I have to be able to just try things out, because until until my SE gets a chance to actually hear what it sounds like, and it isn't real until it's here. And like Kristin said, the here and now is incredibly important and incredibly real to me. So while I might not look for a playmate in someone else, I do look for them to be open to me drawing that side of them out. Because to me, where that's my primary, being able to see that side of somebody where that isn't their primary is an intimate connection, right? Because they're showing me something that they wouldn't normally put forward. And so when I get to draw that out and see that in them, I am feeling a connection on that level that I know they don't put out there for just anybody. But hopefully, because of my playfulness and just being relaxed in general in almost any situation, they'll feel relaxed enough to let that side of themselves come out and join me in it. But I have also, as Kristin has said, mentioned several times, as I've gotten older, as I've matured, as I've gotten to know myself better, I've realized that I want something much deeper than just a playmate in my relationship. I want a connection that's more. I don't always know what that is until I see it in the moment. Again, like a true SE, I have to experience it before I can say, that's what I'm looking for. That's it right there. And then I'll know what it is. And then I can latch onto that as UNFs have said, the ideal. But it's because I had to experience it first, not because I could mentally put it to a concept of what I'm looking for. But once I've experienced it, I'll be like, oh, that's it. That's what I want. So that's, I think, in general, kind of just my take from my perspective.
So well summed up. And I agree with everything you've said. In what you just said about like, yeah, having to have experience it. And then you're like, yeah, that's what I'm after. That. And now I know that that's what I'm after, but I can't just come up with that idea until it's actually happened. Very SE. Love it.
Yeah, I always appreciate having SE dominant types on my panels because they're so fun. All of like the ESTP and ESFP panels I have, they're super entertaining. They're not dry. Like you're really good at spicing things up or like bringing up the goofy or bringing up the playfulness, the funness. It just makes for a really wonderful atmosphere. Yeah, so thanks.
I think this is something that's really, and I think it comes down to this idea with playmates. So my longest relationship was an ISTP, and he did exactly that. He drew something out of me and made it actionable that wasn't there, and it was fun. And I think, I'm not sure if ESTP specifically, but I can imagine so as well. But almost mistyping as ENTP or INTP. And I think the reason is that the creativity, I think, gets underestimated. My partner, he was so good at coming up with games, like out of weird stuff. Like we'd be on Wikipedia and he's like, I would be reading about something and he'd be like, oh, click this link. He's like, no, what we're going to do, I will think of something, a word, like, I don't know, candle. And I'd have to think of a word. And then he's like, type that in, and then so my word would be like debit card, and I Wikipedia that, and he's like, now as quickly as possible through the links, get to candle, like weird little games out of stuff. Like I swear that, and I think that could be misconstrued as any, but it's really like taking these tangible things that in the moment and then creating like a game that has like an end goal. And I think that's why there's this whole idea that they're good at sports. And I think it's not just being able to move in the moment and have that presence. It's also understanding the game itself and a way and a path forward and a way forward and the creativity that comes with that. I'm not sure if anyone agrees with me, but that's the way that why I really like ST types, and SF types I think can do this as well.
It kind of makes sense to me what you're saying. SE is very quick to recognize reality, and because concrete things don't change, right? Like they just are what they are, and so you quickly become bored with things as they are, and so you're constantly looking for a way to make what things are more interesting. And so you start playing around with them and trying to play and find those kind of maybe random connections, like finding debit card to candle, right? Those are still it's still a very concrete game. It's like, I'm going to follow this path. There's a very linear function, which is very sensor in general way of looking at things. But yeah, because we get so used and so quick to recognizing the concrete in life, trying to make it more interesting or more fun then becomes the challenge and the game in life.
And that's why we're always the ones being the most crazy at like parties. And, like, I'm always the one suggesting like drinking games or something to spice up the vibe. You know, there's a bunch of NFs trying to get down and chat, and I'm like, nah, none of that. Get up.
You guys like are the party. There isn't a party unless there's like some dumb SE person. It's like, I don't know, that just it always blows my mind, because if you're one-on-one with an SE type, they can the experience is really fun and it feels very intimate, and then they're able to take that and also make it bigger as well. So and it's awesome. I really like it.
Yeah, I love what Daniel said as well about being able to draw that SE out of people as well, which is a sign of connection, because that's a side they don't really show to people. In the same way, I love when people can draw that deeper, more abstract like side out of me as well, which, I mean, when I was younger, like, I must have been so dull to be in conversations with. If you're an NF talking to me, I would have just been like, you have 5 seconds to grab my attention or I'm going to go elsewhere. But now I just so appreciate when someone can draw out all of these awesome NI patterns that I've spent years building that I want to talk about. And that's one of the like most wonderful things about type, is like being able to sort of see that person in their dominant function, but also like appreciate those beautiful layers to them as well.
One more thing I wanted to touch on that I almost forgot about was that I think people in a relationship with an SE Dom can get overwhelmed by the intensity of the relationship in the here and now. And I think part of it is because we're trying to make this physical connection with someone. It isn't necessarily just like sexually, but just like the intensity. We want to amp that up because you're our person. If we've agreed to this relationship and you're our person, we're going to want to make that connection the strongest, the deepest connection we have. And we want it to surpass the other. For me anyway, I shouldn't say we, I'm saying for me as an ESTP, I want that relationship to have more feeling, more connection of every kind that there is. And so for me, that means I amp up my intensity. And I can go from 0 to 60 very quickly. It's very easy for me to do that. And I sometimes feel bad for my wife. We've been married for 10 years. And she's like, okay, I don't know what to do with this intensity you're giving me. Like, I need time to transition to this level that you're at, and you're like instantly there. And so I feel like a lot of people do, SE types specifically, like they feel like SE types get really intense in their relationships. And as off-putting as maybe that seems to other people, that's actually a really good sign, because that means they're seeking to further that relationship and to deepen that relationship with you. They're not just taking you as this other person in their life. They're actually committing to this relationship. And that's why they're seeking that intensity of connection.
That's really fascinating as someone with tertiary SE, because that's exactly what I do when I am using that function, especially in like play. It like immediately amps up the intensity. And I have never heard somebody articulate why that might be. So thank you for that, and for both of y'all describing the desire of SE to like transform the present moment to make it more interesting. That helps me understand it much more deeply.
Yeah, and it can also relate to the sexual instinct in the Enneagram as well. So people who relate to the SX desire to become more intense with your partner or merge with your partner or become one. Like, it's almost connecting to the divine through your connection with this experience. But yeah, extroverted sensing really does dial up the intensity.
Yeah, when we were talking about romanticism earlier, like, I love romantic literature. It's like one of my favorite genres of literature. and some of my favorite novels would fit into that category. And I've had moments where I will read an experience that's so beautifully articulated in a novel, and I'll feel like my soul is like flying. But for me, it's not. It's, I don't know. I don't want to say it's not, because the end to that sentence wouldn't articulate the NF experience well enough. But for me, it's like the present, like I got like a beautiful gust of wind that hits me the right way, or a beautiful sunset, or, you know, something that's just very intense in the moment makes my soul elevate like that. And I think, yeah, exactly what Daniel said. We're just trying to like make the most beautiful thing out of the present moment. I think that's my FI talking a lot there. But like, I'm so glad that you articulated that, because that's something I feel so deeply. And I have had people who have tried to tell me to like tone down my personality, as if like it's like somehow unlovable for the intensity that it is. And it's been a full journey of accepting that that's not the case. And I'm sure a lot of people in this chat can relate to that. But yeah, if we are being intense, it's a good sign. We're wanting to further that relationship and really bond with you. And yeah, we've touched on a lot of awesome things in this chat.
Yeah, the way that I see is that I see as that there's a notion of losing opportunities. So if you have the capacity to do something good happen now, why you do let it go? So probably a C sees more opportunities all the time. They're willing to take that goodness to your life and to other people's. And especially in my relationship with my cousin, that she is an ESFP, I would say that from my end, that she always makes things interesting, and the time with her passes really fast because she always finds something to do or talk or whatever.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Samuel. Like losing an opportunity is soul crushing to an SE user, or like an SE Dom especially. Like if there was a good opportunity and you didn't get to take advantage of it, it's gone forever. And you almost mourn that. It's like, oh, that could have been so good. But now we'll never, like that specific opportunity will never come around again. The details of it will never be exactly the same again. And that matters. The details to an SE Dom matter so much. So yes, thank you for mentioning that, because that's absolutely true.
Yeah. And when Kristin brought up the point of feeling like too much for other people, you'll hear a lot of ENFPs and ESFPs too. They'll talk about how they feel like they're too much for people, or extroverts in general too. So it's just a fun fact for people.
I was just going to say, I like what Daniel said about the idea of like the missing opportunities is like painful, because for me, I'm almost on the opposite side of that spectrum, where I see opportunities as like an annoyance. Like when something comes up and I'm forced, or someone's like, hey, you want to go do something? And it's like, I can imagine what doing that would be like in my head, so I don't need to do it. Like, why go out on a date when I can just imagine that date in my head? It's been done in 2 seconds. Now we're done. Fine. And it's almost like, if you've ever seen the show Loki, it's like the sacred timeline. Like everything has to flow on the one timeline that I've imagined that it's gone down. And if it doesn't happen like that, I get stressed really easily. But that's something that's gotten a little easier as I've gotten older. And I've even found that as I've made friends who are especially like EP types, I've gotten more comfortable in playing around, doing those sorts of things. I like to get on like VR chat every now and then and just joke around with friends and do crazy stuff, but 10 years ago, you would never catch me doing anything remotely silly or, funny outside of the comfort zone.
And so, Roger, do you have any thoughts on the conversation?
Aside from the fact that, yeah, these are amazing conversations, really interesting, just a lot of affirmations of what I kind of figured with a lot of the types. But I guess in terms of contributing, like, I don't necessarily per se also look around for guardians, I guess, other guardians for relationship, friendships, or romantic. I've been surprised that for me, I'm not sure if this is just a me thing or for others as well, but most of my friends have been different personality types, and I've always welcomed to opportunities to widen my horizons, widen my gaze a lot more. Most of my friends are ENFPs, and they're they're all very very entertaining people, very wonderful people that can definitely spice up any kind of conversation easily. So conversations with them is amazing to widen my perspectives quite a bit. But yeah, even when it comes to romantic relationships as well, I think it's just more of right. There's a part of the connection as well, but I think it's more of there's like such little parts of what everyone has said that I can relate to. So there is an aspect of in the moment, how well can I vibe with this person? Then there's also the aspect of looking into the future. How well could our lives potentially be in the future? How well can we continue having good vibes into the future and seeing how we can progress from there? But yeah, so just interesting topics.
Actually, Roger and Samuel, when it comes to SI, I think, and I could be wrong here, but I get a sense that in the typology community that a lot of the stuff in terms of mood and impression gets put onto FI, but I think SI is really good at creating impressions, physical impressions, and even if that's like an emotional impression or if it's a tangible one. And I think that's what it comes down to with this idea of tradition, is that it's creating a tangible impression that impresses itself upon other people. And I was thinking about this recently, and I'm trying to make sure that I have this right, but I was wondering if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll say that differently from SI, as from my end, tends to focus more not on how things are now, but see that things, as Daniel said, they change all the time. So I'm trying to see something that is part of reality that does not change. So anything that's real and is meaningful, which means doesn't change, it has an history. So, and I'm trying to make something. I'm trying to build a history with you or whatever alone. So probably when I'm trying to make an experience, I'm trying to build a history, even though I'm not necessarily conscious about it, the history, but like naturally flows that way, probably.
Roger?
Yeah, I don't think I'm blown away by your explanation, Samuel. That was perfect. Yeah, I completely relate to that. I don't think there's really much else to add on to that. Right, we're seeking to create those experiences. We're seeking to create that history with you. Right, and that's how it's just always been with my relationships. Just how has this person been in my life? What have they done? What are they currently going through? How can I be of service to them? How can I help them? What can I possibly do for them? It's always just looking into the history, looking at their meaning in my life and vice versa.
So like the history is kind of composites as it goes forward into something.
Yeah, like anything that's something repeats, you're adding a new meaning to that, like token or event. So when you're repeating something, you're making it more meaningful.
So it goes high resolution.
Yeah,
over
time.
Yeah. Okay.
When you say you make it more meaningful, so I'm curious about like the two of you, your subjective experience of meaning in things that are stable, and then like how do you experience the thing that is stable as meaningful? I don't know if that's a clear question. It's like, can you elaborate on what it's like to experience meaning arising as a result of the like stability or persistence of a thing, and then how does that change like the more that you repeat the thing? Like, does the repetition change the like tenor or feeling of the meaning, or does it just intensify it?
Well, the example that I can think about is like a house. If I'm born in a house, the house, as the time passes, I'll have a lot of moments with my parents. So that house will represent the relationship with my parents in childhood. So if that happens, that in the future I'll live with my wife and my kids, that same house will not represent only like a relationship to my parents, but also the family that I created. So the more that I use the house, the more meaning it restores in itself. So the experience just increases because that's a lot of intention into make it something meaningful. because I decided how it would be consistently.
And I think for me, it's just possibly a little bit more emotional. So it all depends on the experiences that I have with individuals. If we reach a moment of vulnerability, if we reach a moment where we're really being authentic with one another, we're sharing each other some vulnerable things with each other, then I consider that as something that we're, I guess, similar to what Samuel was saying, like we're adding on, it's another composite into our relationship. But doing so obviously will then change that relationship. But seeing that, I look at it with great joy because I know that it means that it's something different is going to happen, that our relationship can change for the better. And so, yeah, it's obviously it's not very healthy if something just stays the same way forever. Obviously, things have to change, things have to evolve, things have to become better. And so, yeah, I look forward to increasing those friendships, relationships with others to hopefully create something better.
I'll just add to that as introverts, we like to think about things and ponder about it. So when you're taking that consistent thing, you're always pondering about it. So it changes our interpretation about it and how a little bit. So it's not meant to be stable because things cannot change, but because I've learned with this, and the more that I put on it, I can learn more and more and refine what it is and how I understand it.
Is that different between things that are like specifically in your experience? Like you're describing relationships or locations that like you've had experiences with. Does that same principle apply to things like, I don't know, like historical locations or like an institution like marriage or or like the family structure or like a tradition in a culture? Like, do those also have that same kind of effective subjective meaning? And then how is that meaning different with like a thing that's already established versus like something you built specifically?
Well, I compare that with introverted feeling because even though I'm not involved on that process, I know how it is in being in the process. So I evaluate as another story that was built by other people. So I can learn seeing them and maybe I can incorporate some of what I learned with them in my own. So it's very like FI, at least for me.
Right. And for me, then it would be a little bit different. That's interesting. Right. For me, yeah, if there's any kind of differences, like, or when it comes to like marriage, like, because I've also talked to other ISFJs who are completely anti-tradition. Like they really don't want to, they don't believe in marriage or they don't believe in their cultural ideologies and such like that. So they, in a way, establish their own tradition. They establish their own thing that they then commit to completely, and that's what they do for the rest of their lives. So for me, when it comes to family institutions or marriage or other kind of abstract concept, it's an ever-changing thing, and it has so much different meanings for other people. And for myself personally, I'll have my own meaning, but I'm more than welcome to expand upon that. I mean, like I said, again, like if I just remain stagnant with what I think is right or what I think is the definition, then I'm not going to improve. I'm not going to be a better person for it.
Interestingly, I've noticed that a lot of quite a few of my SI Dom friends take issue with the EP sort of lifestyle of like just going with the flow, not being really in contact with people, which as an SE Dom, obviously I'm engaged with what's immediately in front of me all the time. So it can be very hard to have those long distance friendships, or by long distance, I mean like they could even live 20 minutes away, but like I'm not going to initiate a lot of things. Like it's just very, very like go with the ebbs and flows of what we feel like in the moment. And as a result, sometimes I've been picked up on that by some of my SI friends to kind of like be better at staying in contact with people, which I'm now thinking, the way you just talked about that made me sort of think you guys need that history. For me, I can meet someone at a party and have a really good conversation or experience with them, or I can just meet like the amount of people I've just met overseas and I'll just like have one night with them and like I know I'm never going to see them again, but like I mean like a fun night of playing and going out together, just like as a group, right? And I'm like, I feel like I love you. You're always going to mean something to me in my heart. And that person has a place there in my heart. And so as a result, they don't need to be in contact with me all the time for me to for them to hold that place in my heart. But for you guys, do you think, because you really rely on that history, do you think in order to build meaning in your relationships, that's why you need to have that, do you relate to what I've just said, how I've described my SI friends? And do you think you need that constant, the constant check-ins or the regular sort of memories that you're creating together to form meaning? And I'd actually be interested in everyone's take on just generally what brings meaning to your relationships. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll say that for me, since I also have a fight, once we had that moment, it's there, you were my friend, the time can pass. I don't believe the relationship will change because I'm not seeing you. So I do not see any problem with that. But if they are your friends, I believe that you do not need to change because of them. Maybe it's more something that they should try to accept more how you behave, maybe. Or just that they do not see that there is some consistency in your behavior. Maybe if you can just build some NI, maybe there will be enough influence for them to be more safe about your behavior. But just for me, I would not care. If you just contact me one day, only 3 years later, for me will be no problem.
Yeah, I guess for me it is a little bit different again too. For me, out of sight, out of mind a little bit. It's not like I require or I need some sort of check-in every now and then. If I don't talk to somebody for 3 years, right, I'll still talk to them and everything. But I would recognize that there's a lot that can change in a few years. There's a lot that can change in a few months, a lot of things that are missing, and there will be a lot of gaps in between, which then makes it difficult for me to understand them and understand how to approach them, what topics to even talk about, what to even say. So I guess there is a little bit of that awkward phase for me in the beginning as I'm trying to fill in the gaps. But yeah, if I'm not in somewhat talking with the person, then I do feel like the meaning of the relationship kind of does go down a little bit.
Thank you for that question. Thank you for that, Roger. I was thinking of my experience with a cousin. I lived in the same town as our grandmother. She didn't, but that meant every time, her family came in to see grandmother, she and I got to be together. So we never, had daily contact. We had sporadic contact. But when Jenny and I were together, we were like this. I mean, it's like no time had passed. Nothing had happened. It was, me and Jenny, and we're right here. And I think it's because I'm not going on details of history. I'm going on that resonance that I'm feeling in my chest. And Jenny and I stayed like that for decades. She lived in California. I lived on this coast. I'd fly out there. And it was like, boom, it's just, we're right there. So it was all about resonance. It wasn't about, but Roger, I'm sure it did. The foundation was all those, SI moments from childhood that we had spent together. But I didn't need the details in between. So thank you for making me think that.
So I have a question with regard to first of all of you, thank you so much. This has been fascinating and just all of you are so beautifully articulate in your experience. I have a question that kind of relates to the soulmate topic and the meaning and relationship topic. So I'm hearing that with the SPs, there's this spontaneous experience of meaning in the moment, and there's this desire to deepen the connection when it's established, and to do that in a very intense way. And I'm hearing that with the SJs, there's this desire to build meaning out of creating history and story together. And then Joyce and I as NFs or NFJs, I guess, are and maybe Carol, I was going to ask if this is the same for you, are trying to experience meaning through mutual interaction with that sort of inner world or soul or connection with reality. And then I don't know if I missed the articulation of it, perhaps I did, but I was going to ask for the NTs, how would you describe the process of experiencing and building meaning and connection in your relationships? Are you able to give a metaphor or a summary the way that we've than with some of the others. And then also, Carol, if your experience is different from Joyce and I's, please feel free to.
I can go first, I guess. So I feel like this is a topic that some people don't always like to hear the answer from when it comes to some NTs, because I think there's going to be different responses. My life doesn't derive meaning from relationships. I don't need them, if that makes sense. Like, I could happily be in my room alone for literally years and be fine. To me, relationships are like the nice extra thing that I enjoy that make life better. They're like, the sprinkles on the cupcake sort of thing. So I derive meaning from my personal pursuits, goals, and desires in life, and then having relationships on top of that, whether it be friends or family, friends, romantic or otherwise. That's just something really nice that adds to that and can make my goals even more worth pursuing, because now I have people to share those, those victories and achievements with.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's supplementary, so I wouldn't go out searching for. It sounds really bad, I suppose, and but yeah, like if I was trying to put it in, what gives a relationship meaning, I would just give you kind of a bullshit answer, like saying, someone who respects independence. It's not, which is pretty much exactly what Chris is talking about. It's supplementary. It's like, it's like, you're drinking coffee and then one day you realize you can add sugar. Like, okay, it's nice, but I can drink my coffee black. It's fine. Can have it both ways. It's not essential. It's just nice.
To add to that, some people might think that's kind of odd, but there's also people out there who appreciate that, because that also means that your partner has a sense of independence. Like, because of the fact that you don't need them to live, they don't have to worry about you being latched onto them. There's a sense of independence with both people, but then they can come together and share their connections, and that's what I appreciate.
Yeah, that's a nice summary. Yeah, exactly. It's not a point of connection of two people coming together. It's more like a parallel. So here's one person, one direction, here's another direction, and they go in a direction together, and that's nice, and they can diverge if need be as well.
Is the direction just basically doing life together, or is it the pursuit of compatible goals that you're describing? You're just talking about living life together, or is it also if you're in similar fields or fields that are complementing each other or something like that?
I think it depends. So yeah, it depends on the person that you're sort of running parallel with. And I would assume it's probably different for me in comparison to Chris, because to me, it's like you're your own person and another person comes in, and then you have lots of potential avenues that you can go down. And that really depends on the person that's coming to run alongside you. Whereas I think for Chris, it's probably going to be more solidified, where this is the direction that he's going. And if someone comes in and is kind of going on that same journey, but I'll let him describe it because I'm not sure, but
very close. It's mainly as long as they're not moving in the opposite direction. They don't have to be moving in the exact same direction into me, and they can be doing their own thing perfectly fine. You live your life, have your own goals and pursuits as well, but as long as you're not impeding me from moving in the direction that I want to move in. And if you are someone who is supportive to me, all the better. And the likely it is that you're going to get more time from me and more attention, because those are the types of people who are the most interesting.
Yeah, for me, it would be so long as someone's not impeding on my ability to explore or to discover. So, in relationships where I feel like it gets to a point where all my options are cut off, and to me, that kind of kills the relationship for me. So there needs to be. So yeah, I wouldn't. That's a big problem for me. Sometimes I don't like to be cut off in my ability to make choices.
So speaking of which, as an NTP, what creates that potential or possibility for more options when you're syncing up with another person? rather than it being like we're just not on opposite paths. Like you described it as there's a lot of potential. What tends to fuel that potential?
Well, in my experience, I've dated a lot of either SE or TE types, or either dominant or auxiliary. And how do I explain this? I spend a lot of time on my own, and I have a lot of time processing ideas. And then when I'm engaging with people, that just all wants to like come out, and I've just got just all like word vomit comes out. And what I think SE and T, and obviously this might relate to other types, this is just my experience anecdotally. So what they are able to do is hear all of that idea and either take action on it, and an adventure ensues, or create something tangible, like build something like work-wise or something like that, a goal or something like that. So they sort of take the ideas and give them either action and adventure, or or a plan of action, I would say, for depending on T and SE. And that helps me, because all of a sudden all of the things that I'm thinking about, it has direction now. I'm able to do that stuff, and if it ends, it ends, and it's nice. It's kind of like I kind of see relationships. This is going to be quite lyrical, so bear with me. But if you're out in nature and a butterfly lands on your hand, and you're like, oh, this is such a nice butterfly. It's really pretty, and it's landed on my hand. Isn't that nice? And that's this nice moment. And then the butterfly flies away, and it's a bit sad. Oh, it's flown away, but you're not going to like want the butterfly to sit on your hand forever. So I see relationships in that way. They have impact and direction, or they're good for the time that they have them, and then when they're gone, they're gone. And I think for some people that idea might not be very nice, but to me, there is no specific attachment to it. It's nice, it's there, and then it goes away.
Thank you. And I know that that's not always well received in our in modern culture, so thank you for sharing.
Very interesting. I was just going to ask, the way you spoke about relationships, what about the pain when the relationship ends? What is your experience of that? Because to me, I'm like, yeah, I see what you're saying. The relationship is beautiful, but sometimes the pain can feel so intense for me that it's like something you don't want to repeat. Maybe that's too F of a question.
I mean, so I was in a relationship for 11 years, and my partner had an addiction problem, and he went missing, like literally a missing person missing. And yeah, that's hard. That sucks. But that was hard. It was very, it's not like you don't experience pain and grief, especially when you love and care about someone. But I think maybe what, and maybe Carol would agree with this, and something that I think Annie is very, very good at, it's very positive and has a lot of, it thinks about the future, or I think about the future in very positive terms. And so, because I'm able to see what good can come out of a bad situation quite a lot. So I think, I don't think I don't think things hit as hard for me, maybe than my sister. Things hit her really hard. I think she's an INFP, and things really hit hard for her. But I have quite a positive, I'm positive about the future in general, and I'm usually pretty much in the present moment as well, and I take it as it comes, and then I can see potential. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Oh, it does. Very insightful, and thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, though.
Oh, Louisa, thank you for that. First, Kristin, thank you for that question. Louisa, thank you. That was very touching. I'm sorry you had to experience that. You made me realize that I've got Kristin and you in me, because I've got the, oh my God, the FI feeling of, oh my God, that pain was so bad. Why would I ever fall in love again? Oh my God, this hurts so much. Only a fool would do this again. Of course, I did it again, but then you're right. I never live in the, gosh, Daniel and Kristin, I have spent a lifetime trying to learn to be present in the moment. I'm convinced y'all are here on the planet to show the rest of us, see this? We're here now. Want to come be here with us? Because there's like a here and now, because I've spent my lifetime trying to be in it. So I go to the, oh my God, that hurts so much place. But it's like when I hit a low, a traumatic feeling. I've been through a divorce. It was like, having your heart ripped out and shown to you in front of your face, beating. It was horrific, and I survived it. But what gets me, and it took months for me to get through that, but I remember there's a thing I do when I get really upset, like Kristin was saying, you just get so hurt by something. And it's like I hit a place, and then there's this natural buoyancy. And I totally believe that comes from my extroverted intuiting. It's like I just can't stay. What brings me back up is this helium balloon of, I live in the future anyway. And the future is going to be beautiful. I live in the future where there's world peace and everybody sings kumbaya and loves each other. Nobody drops bombs on each other and nobody yells at each other. Nobody understands each other. And I kind of spend, half of my consciousness is off in that place that, we're I'm not going to say we're not going to create. I refuse to say we're not going to create that place. I was about to say that, but I won't. I will never say that. But you just made me realize, yes. Do you experience that NE as like a helium balloon that pulls you back up, and it pulls you to the possibilities in the future?
That's a great, I love that. Yeah, buoyancy. That's exactly what it is. You just, I don't think I think in terms of like world peace or anything like that. I just, I more see it in things that I can do. So like things that I can create or learn, mainly learning. Oh, I have all of this stuff to learn. I have all of this stuff to experience still. So I that's the way I see it. It's why it's positive. Look at all of these experiences. And I mean, I've lived in 11 different countries now. I've been to a lot of different places, and I still have that drive to like, oh my gosh, I need to, it's fear of missing out. I have FOMO. I need to do all of these things. And same with learning. It's just like, I need to learn all of this stuff. So yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's where the ENTP and ENFP differences reside. So ENFPs have more of the idealistic world peace, kumbaya, kind of FINE type of vision for the future, whereas the ENTP's like, I don't know if I think about it in terms of NFE land, but I do think about that optimism.
The other thing I wanted to, we were talking about mind mates, and I was thinking about this, and I wanted Chris's opinion, because I think this is where there would be some divergence. But in regards to having a mind mate or being a mind mate, I would see myself as a mind mate rather than that being thought, is I think of maybe for INTJs, it's like you have concepts and they're Lego pieces, and you build something together with someone, and you're creating these, like, you have this vision, and then it's they concept Lego pieces, you're building something. And for me, it's more, and I think this is something that's really misunderstood with ENTPs, is that I think of conversations sometimes as Jenga, and you're pulling out a piece and you keep pulling out to see if it's going to collapse. And sometimes I forget in a conversation that this might be really important to someone, or as I'm just like, I'm just going to keep playing Jenga. And so I think with with other entities, they kind of can see that there is that, they can take it for what it is. It's just, there isn't an attachment to it, but it can be taken in the wrong way sometimes as well.
Thank you for that. I've never heard quite so fantastic of a metaphor for like TI analysis, and that really helps me too, because when I move into whatever the fourth spot is into TI, that's like exactly what I end up doing with people. Although I have to rein it in on it being more critique oriented, of being like, okay, let me just dismantle your entire worldview since you like hurt somebody, or like.
For Daniel, it's not a metaphorical Jenga, it's actual Jenga.
That's exactly right. I was just getting visions of the literal Jenga set and thinking, well, of course you start with the outside pieces. And anyway, but yeah.
Well, it's concepts, right? Like, well, for NT, it would be, think of that, but as concepts. And I think with inferior FE, with tertiary FE, I always see FE as being vibes. It's vibes, it's room vibes. And so my mom is a Dom FE. So not only is she able to walk into a room, let's say it's a yellow room, whatever the yellow means, whatever the vibe is, it's a yellow vibe. And she'll be able to come in and she's like, she not only knows the vibe, but the hue, the value, the chroma, she can like match that, all of those nuanced things. Whereas for me, I'm like, the room is yellow. And then I'm like, throw blue paint. I just want to throw it. And I'm like, look at the blue paint in the yellow room or something like that. Or I'll be like, here's my lemons, just really, and it just throws people off. It's an awareness, but also just a need to prod at it as well. And yeah, same with the Jenga, just like, ruining people's worldviews, crashing down. Anyway.
That's actually something that I appreciate when it comes to like wanting the mind mate and a friend. And most of my friends are like usually NTPs or NFPs. And it's because I can walk in on an NFP and be like, here's this 7-page theory I made on video game lore last night that matters to absolutely no one. And they'll just be like, great, let's talk about it. Let me dissect that. And those are the kind of conversations I can have with those types.
Is that an actual paper that you wrote? Because if so, can you send it to me?
I mean, yes, I'm posting on Reddit all the time about stupid things that no one cares about. But
I would totally read that. That sounds amazing. Yes.
I think it's interesting. I have a ENTJ father-in-law, and something that he absolutely loves is for you to argue with him if you disagree with him, but not just to be like contrarian, but to like really challenge what he's saying and really delve into it and to tear that subject to shreds if need be. And so I think it's very interesting hearing you guys also say, hey, in conversations, I want to just like pull these things apart and see if the structure is going to stay, see if that topic and what people think about it is still going to stand when we're done tearing it apart. Because I see that in him as well. He's like, yes, let's do this. Like I don't think I've ever seen him more excited about anything than when somebody argues with him, but is willing to bring facts to back it up. Not just an emotional argument, but like well, no, because if you read this person and you bring this in and you talk about this and this theory and put it all out there, like he loves that. Absolutely. So it's interesting. You guys also brought up kind of that concept. That NTs are very much into that. And
it's even more interesting because if you look at like NTPs, she mentioned the example of like the Jenga tower, which is kind of right. But with the TJs, probably the STJs as well, it's more like a calculated assault, like you're raiding a castle. Like, I know what I'm trying to get out of this conversation. I'm not here to play around with it. I want to see if this is going to withstand my assault.
Cool. And so on that note, we will wrap up the conversation, but we can have a part 2 if the audience members, or if you guys also want to continue on with this chat. And so thanks, everyone. Thanks for representing your temperament. Louisa with her Jenga towers, with the ENTP. I guess that's why like ENTPs get the reputation of being mischievous, because they're like, what happens if I pull this block from your argument? And because they not only have TI, but they have NE, which is a function that seeks to be stimulated too. Just like, Daniel was talking about, SE gets bored, so it wants to kind of mess with its environment to make it more interesting. I think NE has the same property too, where it likes to play with things to make it more interesting too. And so with the TI, you not only like to dissect logical thought, you also have a side of you that kind of wants to stir the pot a little bit to see what will happen with the pot. And so, never a boring day with EPs. EPs just bring the fun. You brought a lot of great metaphors, Louisa, so hands off to you with that, with the coffee and the butterflies and the strings and the threads. And your NE questions, it was great. And thanks, Emrys, for your very spiritual perspective. I feel like I'm talking to a sage or a wise grandmaster of spiritual philosophies when you when you talk. It's very profound, just as Chris was talking about NFs and their need to say profound things. And so you really weave in that kind of thoughtfulness with theoretical perspectives. And so it's both intellectually stimulating, but also with this very wholesome spiritual bent to it. And yeah.
When you guys watch this interview back, keep an eye out for the NF facial expressions that were happening during this. There was a lot of this going on.
Kristin, I saw you doing that when the NFs were talking about especially when Emrys was explaining his tapestry.
Yeah.
thing.
No, sometimes I caught my face doing this. So I just flat out didn't understand. But yeah. I noticed that the NFs would simultaneously nod. Like when someone said something profound, all three of you would just nod. It was great.
Thank you for bringing, when you don't understand, thank you for being an interaction point with us, because that definitely helps us deepen our exploration of and our articulation of those worlds. It's oh, you didn't understand? Okay, cool. I need to reframe how I understand this whole thing and how I express it. So it's very helpful.
The SE need for examples and tangible data. I was like, oh, I'm going to ask for more examples. Sorry, guys. Nah, it was awesome. I love learning about this kind of stuff, and you guys are all great. And thank you for being so open and vulnerable in this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you to Kristin's eagle eyes that notice our body language and then and then point out all of these things. There's a saying that SE dominant types make the best profilers because of their ability to just viscerally read your body language. It makes them good BS detectors too, for that very reason. And so, yeah. Dear Kristin has amazing skits on the 16 personalities. She is really funny. And if you liked her goofiness in just this video or her vibes, go ahead and check out her channel. It is really splendid. And Daniel, it was really nice to hear about your intensity. So your ability to bring 0 to 60 really fast. And so I think a lot of people, they would find that very riveting. So you bring a aliveness, a vividness to the human experience. And it's cool how you bring that passion with your SE and FE working together. So yeah, that makes you a very fun playmate. And Carol, you inspired this. So thank you for just being the soulmate to your NFs. So it's great how you have these heart-to-heart connections. They provide you this softness. So it's great how you have this place in your heart. You and Kristin have this place in your heart for those that you really, really love. And that's a phrase I hear time and time again from introverted feeling users, a place in my heart. Maybe it's a general F thing too, I don't know. But yeah, it's really cute because it gives a reassurance that the people who are in your life, you value them no matter where they are, no matter what they're doing, no matter who they're with, no matter what time it is, no matter how long you've been apart, you still love them. And I think There's some FI, like, I don't know, sometimes when I hear about FI, like from ENFPs, it almost feels like they're describing this form of unconditional love that is so amazing. Because I wonder if they do it because they wish that the world would have more of that unconditional love too. So they give out that unconditional love because it's kind of like wishing for the world to be more like that way as well. But also you have the capacity to love that way, so why not as well? And on a certain extent, maybe you can't help it too, because your love just overflows so much. That's so cute. And yeah, so check out the Association of Psychological Type. Carol is a part of it.
May I make a request? And I got this idea, Kristin. Thank you thank you, Joyce, for mentioning her channel. I'm definitely going to go check that out. I'm the editor of the Bulletin of Psychological Type, and I got something out of the blue last week. A client sent it to me. She said, Carol, I got bored during the pandemic, and she said I did a ENFP during the pandemic rap song, and she sent it to me. Oh my God, it's hysterical. And she nailed the four top functions. Oh, it was just fabulous. So now I'm going to do a series. I'm going to be, and y'all are hearing about this first. I haven't I'll publicize it next month from MBTI, but I'm inviting you to send me a rap song from your preferences, a little rap song, and the ones we're going to, I'm not going to give my money for it, but like there will be a prize, and if you all get a free copy of the issue it's in, and we're going to have a table on the website, and you click a button and you get to hear the rap song for that type. I'm sorry, I'm really excited. It's really late for me to get this excited now. How am I going to go to sleep now? But anyway, I love that Kristin's got this channel, and y'all are exactly the kind of people to say, would somebody please send me a rap song from your preferences? Because I promise it will get a listening to, and I hope it will go. I'm going to publish it in the bulletin, because the bulletin's digital, so I can put an audio file right there in it. So rap song from your preferences, I would love it. Ask Joyce how to reach me. Thank you, Joyce, for letting me ask for that.
Feel free to send your rap entries down below. Yeah, and if I have free time, I might submit my rap entry. I don't know if you'll get an INTJ to rap for you, though. That would be very impressive if you find one. I will give you gold stars. Yeah, that's the exact reaction you'll get from INTJs trying to rap.
I did make him grin at me. He did grin over it. He might not do it, but he did make him laugh.
It's true. It's true. I've been trying to get Michael from my panels to rap. He's like hard no. You get it hard. But it's interesting. And so cool. I think that's an amazing idea. And so yeah, feel free to contribute your piece, your tunes. Show us your inner Eminem. Yeah, go do it. And so Chris, thanks for coming out and being our residential INTJ in his residential INTJ layer, and you and your essays on these very niche topics. It's nice to hear about those. And I'm sure other people also want to check out your essay on these things too. So if you want, just feel free to send me the link and I can link it below. And people can read your manifestos on your current FI obsessions at that moment. And yeah, go check out his channel. It's called AsuraPsych. And if you want your daily dose of INTJ, you can get your fix over there.
I'm just imagining what Joyce's rap song would look like. It's just going to be like affirming people the whole way through, plugging people's like creative projects. I love it.
Oh, thanks, Kristin. And Roger, he is great. He makes sure that the ISFJ Haven group and other Facebook groups that he's a part of are running smoothly and that they don't go down in flames. And so a really big SJ strength is being able to make sure that things stay running and that they're able to be upheld and the good things about them stay there too, and that they're not burned in the chaos of life. SJs are the most reliable, the most loyal, the most dutiful, and the most responsible. And they're really great at making sure things don't light up on flames and then burn to ashes. So if anything is still surviving, if anything is still sustainable, it's either an SJ keeping it alive or someone bringing up SJ qualities within them to keep it running. So thank you for that. And you do
during the apocalypse.
yeah. And so, Roger, you do sprinkle in the FE in portions of it too, because like you'll affirm before you talk. You're like, yeah, you know what? Your point was so amazing, mind blown. And then you go into your actual like TI of it. So it's great to see you flipping through the functions. I'm just clearing my throat for the rap that I'm going to say soon. I'm kidding. And so, Samuel, I like having you on these panels. And you're always so enthusiastic to be a part of this. It's great to have like an ISTJ who's like, yeah, typology. And then you can represent the type more and that people can really understand sensors more accurately because like sensor profiles don't do them justice. And so when we have more ISTJs like you in the community, you can correct any of the misconceptions. And you also added some extremely valuable insights during the panel too. Like when Emrys would speak or someone else, you'd go like, oh, right, so NFs, they see the implications of the thing more than the actual concrete reality of the thing. And then everyone's like, Samuel's smart. Cool. And so thanks everyone for being delightful, for representing your essential motivator. I'll see you all in the next episode. Take care.